Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale, and what an episode this is. We have the ASU game coming up this weekend. We have the Michigan State basketball game coming up on Thursday. But Shane, on last Saturday, was one of the most satisfying Arizona football games I have ever been to in my entire life. And fortunately, as people saw on Twitter, I was sitting very nearby you for most of the game, which was great.
Well, yeah, and in my infinite wisdom, I made the trip down to the game. I saw the weather forecast said all the rain's passed, we're good. I brought my hoodie down just in case, but I got to the stadium, got to the parking garage. It was sunny. Weather Channel says it's not going to rain. I left my hoodie in the car. And then, of course, the second quarter, I held out for a while. I didn't go below ground for a while, and then it just started coming down in buckets. And I watched the last couple of minutes of the first half on this monitor underneath the stage.
Weak.
I know. You held out the whole time.
I held out the whole game. You know what? Because of all the Arizona football games I've been to, probably 150 or thereabouts. I don't remember one where the rain was as steady as what we saw on Saturday. And I was like, I'm going to experience it. I don't care. It was part of the whole thing. And the fact that Arizona got up so early, and we're going to talk about all this with in our first segment. And then, of course, Barrett Baker, who's one of our favorite college football analysts, going to join us to break everything down in segments 2 and 3. I mean, it was just one of those games where I just wanted to soak it all in. The last one we're going to have at Arizona Stadium until 2024. Last one
last
in Pac-12 play.
Game, yeah.
And I was like, I'm just going to soak all of this in. And that is a game I will not forget anytime soon. I will tell you that. Let's get
just going to say, amazing opening to the game. Obviously, I know we're going to talk about it some more, but I am happy for you, Eric Cohen, because you have been through thick and thin and a lot of thin with this program. You go to every home game outside of 2020, and you missed the 2021 win, because of COVID.
Yeah.
So 5-1 at home, you deserve to see the success you got to experience in person. I'm glad I was able to experience the last one with you, but it's fun. We'll enjoy the ride as long as we can, and hopefully it keeps on rolling this weekend.
Yeah, this weekend. Very important one. We're going to talk all about it. But first, let's get right to it. Shane's Standouts is a weekly feature. Give us what you got.
All right. Well, it's pretty easy to do a lot of these, but I'll start off with all the Juice County guys. Noah Fafita, another great game. T-Mac throws for a touchdown and then catches a late one, both highly entertaining for very different reasons. We'll talk about that. Keon Burnett got involved with a reception early in the game. And of course, Jacob Manu with the interception. He gets tackled by the quarterback. I'm sure he got a lot of crap from his teammates about that, but those guys are always outstanding, and man, what a package deal those guys have been. On defense, Dalton Johnson was everywhere, had a sack, a couple TFLs, I believe, was outstanding. I think this is the second time I mentioned him. Traden Stukes, a guy who lived through some really crappy times at Arizona, had a great interception, had a fantastic game. Happy for him. So mention those guys. I'll mention one guy on the basketball side. I want to shout out Mo Krivas because, you can mention any of the starters, but he looks like almost a double machine off the bench, 10 points, 8 rebounds a game. And he's only going to get better. So very excited about that. And, when they take out Ballo and bring in Krivas, you don't miss a beat. So hopefully he'll be at Arizona for a while, and he's only going to get better. And then I want to go off the beaten path a little bit and mention Lucas Havrisik, who kicked the game-winning field goal for the Rams against the Seahawks on Sunday. I'm not a fan of either team, but very happy for him. And it's pretty cool that, as much grief as Arizona kickers have given us over the years. We got, Nick Foles has been in the NFL for a long time. Lucas Havrisik is there, and it's the second straight week that a U of A kicker has kicked the game winner. Tyler Loop against Colorado, and then Lucas Havrisik against the Seahawks. So I want to shout out all of those guys.
Well, that is quite a list, and that's so cool that Arizona has 2 of the 32 kickers in the NFL right now.
Figure. Yeah.
Who would have thought? It's truly unbelievable. But all right, it is time for our normal segment, which is Buy or Sell, presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. Go to iceshaker.com. Use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, and I'm sure they have plenty of Black Friday and Cyber Monday specials if you want to go and get yours. Or go to fanatics.com and get yourself an ice shaker like you can see that Shane was just drinking out of on our video stream. And there's one behind him. And there's a couple behind me on my video
Right
stream.
next to that Sun Devil helmet, yeah.
Well, you know what? I always put the matchups on there.
I know.
I'm gonna have to get a lot of Big 12 helmets.
That's
So
true.
I'll probably end up getting some from fanatics.com separately from Ice Shaker. But all right, Shane, let's start it off. Number one, Jed was absolutely out of line by running it up with under a minute left.
Oh, technically, yes, but we all understand the reasoning. Whittingham decided to stretch out the game as long as possible. Jed brought Jaden DeLora in late in the game, and he thought the game was over, and you're down 25 points. You call time, you have 3 timeouts, you get the ball back, you go for 2, you do the onside kick, and so Jed's like, "Oh, you want to stretch out the game? Okay, let me oblige you." And I'll tell you, I'm sure Jed was. He knew he was going to get some blowback from Utah fans and Whittingham and all that for doing that. I guarantee he doesn't care. This was his poised moment. This was him. It's just like Sean Miller calling that last second timeout against UCLA that didn't matter. Getting back at UCLA for doing the same thing in a previous matchup. He didn't do it because he didn't care how UCLA or Alford felt about it. He did it for his players because he knew that his players would love it. And they would play even harder for him, and that's why Jed Fish did what he did with he wanted to give Jaden DeLora some a chance to I say go out with a blaze of glory because he's probably not going to be Arizona starter next year. I can't imagine he would be at this point, and that could have been his last throw in an Arizona uniform, and he wanted to give him that opportunity and maybe give T-Mac a chance to catch a touchdown along with throwing one. So unwritten rule broken, yes, you could argue that Whittingham broke one first. But I think you and I in the stands both absolutely loved it, and we love the swagger that this team's playing with right now.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, it really fires up the team. We'll talk to Barrett about this as well later in the show, but it was so unexpected, and Whittingham should have just let the game end. Final score 35-10. It was a blowout, was what it was. But he tried to get cute. I loved what Jed did. It shows that how much confidence this team has, and the fact that DeLora threw a dime, and I mean. It's one thing you try a bomb and it doesn't work. What would Jed have done after that? I probably runs the ball. He took one shot and it happened. I loved it. I think every Arizona fan loved it. This is the swagger that Arizona hasn't played with in years. I mean, that's what this showed me. This showed me swagger. And, we're not talking like University of Miami circa 1990s swagger, but this is for a team. This shows you've turned the corner. Now, I don't like the argument that, hey, they'll get, you'll get him next year or whatever. We saw that. Listen, 70-7, ASU ran it up against Arizona. And I'll tell you what, if Jed has a chance, I'd run it up on Kenny Dillingham.
If he has Saturday. A chance, he will. I guarantee you he will. I remember before Jed played in his first or coached his first game against ASU, and ASU won that game in Tempe 2 years ago. But he mentioned he cited when ASU threw the ball up 63-7 or something like that. And he said, we remember. He wasn't part of that team, but he gets it. And so he knows how important it is. He knows how that revs up the fan base, how that revs up the players. And so to him, that outweighs the possibility of blowback the following year. He thinks that outweighs it. And for right now, I agree with him. When's the last time Arizona's been in this position?
I mean, it's a great point. And that's how he won like a champ. That showed me a lot from Jed Fish. Really impressed. So obviously we're selling that one. All right. Number 2, Shane, the first 15 minutes and let's say 6 seconds against Utah was the best in-game stretch of Arizona football since, can you think of a time? 28-0 after the first play of the second quarter. I couldn't believe, nobody in the stands could have believed it.
No, it was amazing. Yeah, we were all like, who the hell is this team? And so it was remarkable. And there were some similarities between this game and the Oregon game 10 years ago when Arizona blew out the Ducks at home in a very unexpected fashion. Similar scoreline too. I think it was like 42-16. So very, very similar. And you got some rain in that game too. I think it was rain before the game as opposed to during the game against Utah. But I don't know the last time Arizona's played that well in a quarter against that good a team. I can't remember in any instance.
I can't either. Honestly,
I'm sure it happened, but I can't think of it. And I would say it was certainly the most satisfying quarter or so of football since that Oregon game when Arizona started off strong with the Shaq Richardson flipped to Scooby for the interception that just got everything rolling.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That 2013 game at home, was a dominant first quarter. I believe it was the last home game of that season as well, against a ranked Oregon team that was obviously very good. Mariota was 1 year away from winning the Heisman Trophy, but Arizona really had their number under Rich Rod. And after getting blown out the year before, in Oregon. I think Arizona got shut out like 49-zip. Last year in Utah, Arizona got pummeled as well. And so Jed knew kind of what he had to do. But that was, I mean, in all three phases of the game, obviously they go down, they throw a touchdown right away with the T-Mac to Wiley touchdown pass. The block punt, stunning. I mean, when's the last time Arizona had a block punt for a touchdown? Who the heck knows?
I actually remember when 2009 Orlando against ASU, one of the last times Arizona beat ASU in Tempe, or Orlando Vargas returned a block punt for a touchdown. That was one of Arizona's 2 touchdowns in that game. That's the last one I can remember.
Yeah, I don't have I don't remember offhand seeing one at Arizona Stadium in a long time. And that was right where, right in the end zone where I was sitting. So just kind of glorious to see that. They score on their next possession. I mean, it's 21-0. And then first play of the second quarter, Michael Wiley catches a 30-some yard touchdown. And it was just like, what? Nobody in the stadium believed what was going on. It was wild. Just an incredibly satisfying moment, incredibly satisfying game. I loved every bit of it. The rain, the blowout, the running it up, everything was just phenomenal. Just not a game I will always remember. I'll tell you that. All right, number 3, Shane. All that has been accomplished this season goes out the window with a loss to a bad ASU team.
I'll sell that everything goes out the window. I mean, it's a big game, and it would be an awful way to end the season, not only because you'd lose to ASU, but you'd lose to a bad ASU team. So I think a lot of those good feelings would disappear. Kind of like last year, we go into the offseason, we talked glowingly about Arizona's 5-win season because it was better than we expected, and it ended with a win over ASU. If it didn't, we probably would have had all those good feelings for the next few months. And so that's part of what's on the line. Of course, you have the bowl game after this too, but to be rolling like this, to beat so many good ranked teams, if you go and lay an egg against a bad ASU team, I know they've had their moments, but they're not a good team. Arizona's much better on paper and record and otherwise. So no, it doesn't. Of course, it doesn't erase everything. They're still an 8-win team. They still go into a bowl game, but having to, another year of ASU fans lording that over us, especially up here in the Valley where you have so many ASU fans and coworkers and everything, that would be very difficult.
Yeah, I would be super bummed. It obviously doesn't ruin the season. I mean, listen, 8 wins is 8 wins. They've beaten 4 ranked teams. They're 4-2 against ranked teams this year. It's been a phenomenal year. You can't lose this game. And I want to once again shout out the people, and I don't remember who it was offhand. There's a few of you that said 9 wins on our YouTube page before the season. I basically called you crazy. You're looking like the genius now, and I'm eating some crow. And you know what? Very, very glad to be wrong about that. This is just a phenomenal. Everything about it is just, who would have thought? So glad to be wrong. And let's get that 9 wins. Hell, let's get to 10 wins, Shane. Win this game, and then you're playing in a big bowl game. And you get to 10 wins.
It is insane that 11 wins is still possible. I'm not expecting it, but it's still possible. You beat ASU, you win the Pac-12 championship game, you win a bowl game. I'm not expecting it, but the fact going into the last week of the season that 11 wins is still possible is insane.
Let's just roll with 10. Let's talk about that bowl game. Listen, so we know that Oregon needs to lose to Oregon State on Friday night, and then Arizona would play its way into the Pac-12 championship game. That's not happening. If the game was in Corvallis, I'd say maybe, but it's probably not
likely. Not likely.
Okay. So let's talk about what bowl games are reasonable for the Wildcats. What are your expectations right now with a win and then with a loss? And is the Fiesta Bowl still in play in your opinion?
I think the only way they get to the Fiesta Bowl is if they win the Pac-12 championship. Otherwise, I think that, say Oregon slips up against Oregon State and Arizona sneaks in. If they lose to Washington, Oregon's probably going to be ranked higher and go to the Fiesta Bowl. So I think the only way they get there is, and of course, Arizona's having this success in another year where the Rose Bowl is out of the question because it's a college football playoff game. Just like in 2014, they would have gone to the Rose Bowl if it wasn't one of the 3 seasons where it was a college football playoff game. So I think that's the only way they get to the Fiesta Bowl. As far as other possibilities, certainly the Alamo Bowl is in play, which would be outstanding. You play a hopefully very good Big 12 team, maybe Oklahoma in that scenario. I know that Jeff mentioned that the week before. I'd be fine with a Holiday Bowl too. It might even be a game I would go to, even though I have a very bitter taste in my mouth from going and in 2009,
Yep,
where
same.
that was just an
Awful.
ugly game. And it started raining in that game too.
Yeah, that was probably the last game I can remember where it was like raining that hard during the game and it was miserable. Yeah. This one was great just because of the outcome, but okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But Alamo or Holiday, I think, are the most realistic scenarios.
All right. So I think probably the Alamo against Oklahoma with a win. And I think that's where we're gonna pencil. And that's a big game. We'll ask Barrett his thoughts on that. I think the Holiday Bowl, potentially in play. I think Vegas Bowl still in play, maybe the Sun Bowl, because after the Holiday or after the Alamo, which probably would take Arizona, do you take a USC over Arizona, even though they're not going to play any of their good players?
Yeah.
At some point, then you get kind of some chances if Arizona has 3 losses. At that point, they pretty much have to. The Alamo Bowl would have to take Arizona, and it would be a good crowd. You and I probably wouldn't make it. It's just kind of too tough of a trip, but it'd be a big game, and the exposure that they would get would be phenomenal against Oklahoma, a team that's leaving the Big 12. They're entering the Big 12. I'm all for it. So would maybe love to see a changing
of the guard in the Big 12, maybe.
So remember the question that I posed before the Oregon State game during our bye week. I said more wins from football and potentially 6 games, or during basketball with the non-conference with the big 6-game slate. And we both kind of said, 4-2 of each. If you were to say, right now Arizona football is 4-0. Basketball is 1-0, pending this week against Michigan State. What would you revise those records to as of right now?
So is it 4-0 or 5-0 for football? Were you counting the ASU and a bowl game?
ASU and a bowl game, yep.
Okay. And then, of course, the basketball still got Michigan State, Wisconsin, FAU, which just lost
Alabama and
Purdue.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, I think you'd have to say football because it certainly, and we'll make our predictions later. Certainly, they should beat ASU. The bowl game, who knows? Because we don't know who they're going to play. So that would put them at 5-1. The basketball team, they already won at Duke, so they're more than capable of running the table. But it's still a gauntlet of teams they have to go through. Purdue is going to be very difficult. Michigan State's going to be difficult. So I think 4-2, 5-1. I would probably I'm on that cusp for the basketball team, the football team, and even if they happen to lose to ASU, I don't even want to talk about that, but we have to accept it's a possibility because the game hasn't been played. Even if that were to happen, they could certainly go on and win their bowl game. So I would at this point have to roll more with the football team having a better record in those 6 games than the basketball team in their 6.
I think, Shane, there's a very good chance that Arizona could. Obviously, win in football and then end up going 6-0 in football. And then in terms of basketball, I think the Purdue game is the only game that I'm, scared about because it's essentially a road game. Florida Atlantic just lost to Bryant or something like that. Michigan State's lost to James Madison at home. Alabama at basically a home game. Wisconsin's a home game, even though they beat Virginia before we're recording here on Monday night. So I'm not overly afraid. I think this basketball team, Shane, is really good. I see 5-1. I think football goes 6-0. What's Oklahoma's motivation to play in the Alamo Bowl? Not much. They had a chance to go to the Final Four midseason. They kind of let up. This is an Arizona team that's going to play uber motivated. And I think, Shane, there's a chance that at the end of the season, we could have both our football and basketball teams ending up in the top 10, which is mind-blowing to think about. Yeah, but I think this Arizona football team, you think about after all the losses, if Arizona wins out this in their bowl game, that's and after all the carnage in the final poll that comes out on January 9th or whatnot, Arizona will be in the top 10.
As far as I'm concerned, Eric, you take care of business in Tempe and everything else,
and then worry about everything else.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the basketball team for a second. It's not really a buy or sell question, but I think it was just really something on Sunday. They were up by 6 at halftime against UT Arlington, and you're like, all right, here we go. Now that they showed so much potential, and now they're going to disappoint us and giving up 37 points to UT Arlington. Second half score: Arizona 58, UTA 19. Yeah. Final score: Arizona 101, UTA 56. They blew out a decent Belmont team on Friday night. Shane, this team, I think, from what I've seen now, is on par with the elite Arizona teams we've seen over the last 10 years. What would you buy or sell that?
I'd buy it based on what we've seen so far, which is all we can go on. Absolutely. I think that they filled in all the gaps they had last year. I think last year's team really played above its talent level. This year's team is playing at its talent level, which is very high. And they fill in the gaps from last year in terms of rebounding, in terms of defense, in terms of great guard play. And like you always talk about, having an alpha or having multiple alphas, guys who were not afraid to take the last second shot. Last year, it was, it wasn't Tubelis, it wasn't Ballo. Do you want Kurt Griesa taking that shot? And now, for better or worse, Caleb Love wouldn't be afraid to take over a game late. Kylan Boswell probably wouldn't be afraid to take over late. So I think all the things that we're missing on last year's team are here now. And there's going to be some bumps in the road at some point, whether they lose a couple games or there's an injury, hopefully not too serious. Those things are going to happen. They're not going to go undefeated going into the NCAA tournament. But from what we've seen, I try not to be the overreaction guy. Yeah, I think this looks like as good a team as Arizona's had in a long time, right up there with the Sean Miller teams that probably should have gone to the Final Four. You're muted, dude.
Of course, I leave myself on mute just as I'm ready to get the outro for this segment. Arizona, a couple big games this week. Michigan State on Thursday. Thanksgiving. You're watching it on Fox. Then you've got an ESPN telecast, Arizona-ASU. What's going to happen in those games? Well, first we'll talk to Barrett Baker, our buddy. We'll get some thoughts on the football team, and then we'll make some picks in the third segment here in Wildcat Country.
What's up, everyone? It's Chris Grakowski, and football season is back. Ice Shaker is a proud sponsor of the Wildcat Country podcast. Don't forget to check out some of our new products like the Ice Shaker with the built-in bump box speaker that's going to absolutely pop at your next tailgate party. Let's crush it this season. Bear down!
Shane, we haven't had our number one college football analyst on Wildcat Country since September. And
shame on us.
And since we last had him on, what is Arizona's record? Let's see, they were 2-1 the last time we had Barrett on. Since then, 8-3, so they're 6-2 since then on a 5-game win streak. Barrett Baker, former special teams captain, and I believe battalion chief. Did I get it right? In the Tucson Fire Department? I do that every time. I should probably write this down.
Let's just keep rolling with it.
Okay. Right,
Deputy chief, but one term off, and that doesn't matter. So we're all good.
Battalion kind of sounds cooler, to be honest, though.
Nah, deputy chief. We're going with it. Hey, Barrett, we haven't.
I'll let my supervisor know.
There, exactly. We haven't had John since September, and we talked about, hey, this team has potential. We're one game is left in the regular season. Just give us your thoughts on everything you've seen over the last 6 weeks.
I just think it's exciting to see the development of a team that going into a season didn't really know how to win. They thought they could win. And they had a couple tests early in the season where it's like, well, wait a second, maybe we are as good as we thought we could possibly be. And then obviously, I'm not sure exactly that moment that took place, but we went toe-to-toe with Mississippi State on the road in a tough environment. Then we come home, get a little bit of an easy victory, I guess we'd say, against UTEP, struggled against Stanford. And there was a moment there, it's like, wow, I don't know if we are that team. But obviously something happened. And then each victory, you just start believing more in yourself, and you start believing more in your teammates. You start believing more in the coaches, and it all comes together. To win 5 games in a row, that is quite a feat because a lot of things have to go right. You got to stay healthy. The ball's got to bounce your way, and you got to make plays against teams that are tough. And when you look at that lineup of teams that we played against, that's not a patsy. We're not Alabama, and we did not get to play some North Carolina A&T Apalachicola in week 11 of the season. So to keep our foot on the gas and then culminating in Saturday's, complete demolition of Utah, it's just really exciting for the kids, for their hard work to pay off in victories, not moral victories, in victories, to where we are 8-3, and we're the talk of the town right now. And we're the talk of the town on a national level. And that is so exciting as an alum for people to be saying Arizona football, watch out for them.
I remember, Barrett, the three of us did a live stream 2 years ago after Colorado beat Arizona 30-0 in Boulder. And it's just amazing how far we've come in just 2 years. Hopefully we never, ever go back there. I know you were at the game like we were, the Utah game. We talked about it already, what stood out to us. So what are some of your big takeaways from that win? And were you surprised that Arizona was as dominant as it was?
To answer your last question first, yes, I was. Jed Fish is very complimentary of Utah. He constantly talks about the fact that that's where we want Arizona football to be as a program, and Utah doesn't get blown out. And so to come and get a third down conversion on the first drive instead of going 3 and out and then marching down and putting 7 points up. That's a great start to the game. And then as a special teamser, the smile that immediately comes to my face right now when I see Anthony Ward come in there and block that punt and scoop and score. And, did anyone know, honestly, who number 57 was before that game? And that's not a slight at him, right? But that guy has been a demon on special teams throughout the entire season. And I mean, I'm not even sure if people know that he's got a brother on the team. So for him to come in and make an impact and get a block punt and a scoop and score, and now it's 14-0, and then to get another stop on defense and then score again, it's like, whoa. And I don't think Utah ever they didn't get unpacked before they knew what in the heck was going on. So more importantly than that, though, I guess I would say is this: when you get up 28-0, it is so easy to take your foot off the gas and relax. And there has a couple moments there where Utah had a chance to get back in the game, and we prevented it from happening. And that's the difference between this team and I think years of old. Like, they didn't really threaten. We didn't lose momentum. We didn't hurt ourselves. We kept our foot on their throats, and that's how we were able to come out with such a dominating victory.
All right, Barrett, I got to ask you about that last-minute touchdown. Eric and I loved it watching it live. Obviously, we know Jed's reasons behind it, throwing the deep bomb to T-Mac in the last minute with the game locked up. What were you thinking, and what are your thoughts about Jed's decision to run up the score a little bit there?
I didn't like Utah taking 3 timeouts. I didn't like Utah trying to get a 2-point conversion, and I didn't like Utah going for the onside kick. So if I add up those 5 things, then I basically think that, hey, if you want to try to extend the game and keep it going, then we have an equal right to do that. That doesn't mean I wasn't surprised. I think that it would have been very easy to take the high road and not do that. But it doesn't seem like there's been anything in the past. Like I said, we've been very complimentary of their program. So I was a little surprised that we took that shot. But again, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes with Delora and Coach Fish. And I do truly think that Coach Fish cares about Delora. And, I don't think that he obviously is in the future plans of the program. So to let him do something like that, what am I going to say to that? So congratulations to both of them. And again, I think Morgan Scally said it and Coach Whittingham said it. Our job is to stop them. We didn't do that. And, don't cast a stone if you live in a glass house, because I think people were pretty easy to cite some things that Utah has done in the past as well when when they've done the same thing.
Barrett, because of that play, Tetairoa McMillan was one of 7 players in college football this season to throw a touchdown and catch a touchdown. He did not have a touchdown catch in that game. So it's kind of a cool stat. I mean, he's had a phenomenal year. Dorian Singer, I don't even want to go there. I'm sure, I guess the talent's so much better at USC.
I hope that NIL money was good, man.
Exactly. All right, let's get to something. Let's talk about the game this weekend. So ASU is up next. We'll make our predictions in the last segment. Are you concerned about the game? Do you feel uber confident? Like, where do you stand knowing all the crazy things that can happen in this rivalry?
Yeah, I don't think you ever go into this game feeling good about it. And you shouldn't, quite frankly. When I look at their team and I look back to last year, Bourget, he sliced and diced us, threw for over 300 yards. And that game was not decided until there was 3 minutes to go when Manu picked off the pass or caused a fumble. I can't remember. I'm getting old. But
it was after that decided. Too. The ASU got the ball back, and then Manu right. Forced the deflection
Isaiah
on
Taylor.
the pass. And
Isaiah Taylor got the.
So, yep. There you go. Yep. So, now when you look at their record, then it's easy to think, oh, well, we're going to take care of business. Listen, they played Washington better or tougher than anybody else this season and should have probably beat them had it not been for a controversial call from a referee. They beat UCLA. And so when you take all of that into consideration, why would we go into the game thinking we're going to just knock them out from the first quarter on? That being said, we're going to knock them out from the first quarter on if we do what we're supposed to do. And, I'd like to give them a heavy dose of Jonah Coleman. I'd like to get, obviously, just a nice offensive rhythm early in the game and get ahead of them because they're not built to come from behind. And that's the biggest thing to me. They've got Scadaboo and they've got Jalen Conyers. They've got some weapons on offense, but they're not good enough to play from behind. So we've got to get ahead. And, the fluky things that keeps somebody in a game, like turnovers and special teams. We cannot allow that to happen to us. So if we play a clean game, then I don't think that there's any doubt that we win the game. But it's very important that with a team that is inferior, you have to get on them from the beginning, and you have to take their soul and basically make sure that they don't have any reason to believe that they can compete with you.
I think that's a great point, about that. Now, when you were playing and you were going into this game, was it kind of I guess the way that, some guys get motivated knowing, hey, it's a rivalry. Kenny Dillingham showing I think Shane tweeted this out, Dillingham showing a video to his team of what the Territorial Cup means. Jed Vista showing him a billboard. What was your personal motivation going into this game that made it stand out, I guess, more than others?
I grew up a Sun Devil. My dad was a Sun Devil alum, and that's the side of the fence that I was raised on. And so I will never forget walking into Sun Devil Stadium in 1997 and thinking, oh my God, I'm here. And, Coach Tomey that night said, this is where it's going to happen, gentlemen. And we were able to knock them out of the Fiesta Bowl that year. What a great feeling. What a great thing to be part of a team that sent a bunch of Sun Devils home sad and depressed. And then the following year in 1998, obviously we just had so much on the line with that particular game. We had, the expectation is if we took care of business that we were going to be going to the Rose Bowl. And so there was obviously a great deal of motivation in that particular game. And that game ended up being a little closer than what I think we anticipated. But, they got talent on that team. They had J.R. Redmond, they got Todd Heap. And obviously that they weren't they weren't just pushovers. So, but to be 2-0 against them, that puts a smile on my face. And I think that this year's team realizes what's in front of them. And I think that they are looking forward to getting up there and breaking this. I could not believe what I heard, that we haven't beaten them since 2011 up there. Yeah. So time for that horrific streak to come to an end.
Yeah, Barrett, on the defensive side, we really haven't touched on yet. And of course, they've been fantastic from the front line to the secondary. They're clicking on all cylinders. One thing that concerns me a little bit is I feel like Arizona has, I want to say gotten away with, but maybe just narrowly avoided some dumb penalties. Like a late hit where the flag was picked up against Utah. Jacob Manu could have been called for a late hit against Shooter Sanders late in the Colorado game, which could have changed the everything there. And then on top of that, it's a rivalry game. It's emotional. Dwayne Akita and Chuck Cecil are going to rev them up. Any concerns about that from your perspective, as far as maybe this defense is going to be a little too revved up going into this game?
Yeah, I think there's always that concern that you got to be, right on that line of playing out of control emotionally, and physically, or playing out of control physically, but playing in control emotionally. And I don't know if you understand what I'm saying there, but you got to be pegged, right? You got to be flying around with your hair on fire, running to the ball, but then controlled and disciplined enough to not take that extra step, to not blast the guy out of bounds. So Kamu, I am surprised that they picked up that flag against Utah, quite frankly. And then to your point, Upshaw's gotten a few personal fouls this year for a late hit on the quarterback. And those are just killers from a defensive standpoint, because it's just 15 yards and it's a chance for an offense to continue to work and get yardage against you and potentially get an explosive play against you. So there's a fine line there. And generally speaking, early in the game, depending on how chippy it gets, but we're better than them. We just have to play under control and make sure that we don't let ourselves get in the way of that. And so I don't feel like that's something that has become a huge, it's an almost, right? But it hasn't become a huge issue at this point. And I don't think that it starts after this many games into the season. I think that we're a pretty disciplined team that should be able to keep that under control.
Put yourself in Johnny Nanson's shoes, because I've been yelling at him for weeks to bring more pressure on, especially on third and long situations. But I feel like if it's Trenton Bourguet, and it could be Jaden Rashada, we're going to get some of Scadaboo a quarterback, a Conyers a quarterback. But just looking at Trenton Bourguet, I think he's actually very good under pressure in finding safety valves. And I'm wondering if maybe you play back a little bit, maybe don't bring as much pressure against Bourguet, assuming that he is going to be the guy for most of the game. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think he's the scrambling threat that Sanders was from Colorado. And I thought that we stayed back early in that game and then had to really adjust in the second half and start moving him and putting someone in his face. Just going back to last year, and even back to last week, we did bring some pressure, and the Utah quarterback was able to get rid of that ball literally a millisecond before he was getting crushed and completed some third down completions.
Yeah.
That would probably be my biggest concern, is he did it last year. So what's changed this year? And ASU's offensive line is injured, and they're not a real strength, but we heard that against Colorado, and I didn't think that we dominated from a pass rush standpoint. So I think that there's concerns there. And to your point, the kid's got a good head on his shoulders. He recognizes where things are coming from, and he delivers the ball on time. And he does not have a strong arm, but if the ball is in the air before the receiver comes out of the break, and then he turns around and the ball's there, then that's very, very tough to defend. So that's one thing that I would say about Coach Nansen and the different makeup of this year's defensive staff, is that the adjustments that we do make throughout the game have really been sound. We win the second half. So regardless of what they throw at us early in the game, I would expect that we'll be able to make some adjustments.
All right, my last one before we get into picks, Barrett, I want to ask you about bowl games. Now, we haven't talked about this subject a lot on this program at all since Shane and I took over here in 2020. Is there an opponent that you would like to see? Is there a matchup you would like to see? Is there a destination that you are hoping for based on the realistic possibilities of what is out there for Arizona football?
Bowl games are funny things because you work the whole season to get to a bowl game. And we've talked about this before. You don't hate the team that you're playing. There's no rivalry there. So how do you find something to motivate your team? And for Nebraska, that end, as we've talked about plenty of times, not today, right? Not today. There was no way that they were going to get a victory against us. And that's who we wanted to be because they were the defending national champions. So depending on, what you read, the Holiday Bowl, we travel well there. It's an easy trip to San Diego. It's an entertaining game, and we would pack that place. And I think, that it's a good spot from a fan support standpoint. But the Alamo Bowl, to me, and going against like an Oklahoma, that's the one where it's like, okay, Arizona football's back. And so that's where I would tend to, be partially pulling for. I just think it's a good venue. We've played in the Alamo Bowl before against Oklahoma State back in the Foles era.
Yeah,
and it did not go so well.
No.
But either of those two, I think for me, a Holiday Bowl, Alamo Bowl, those are primetime bowls. You're going to get a good opponent in either of those two and give us a chance to showcase who we are.
So to make the Alamo Bowl, Arizona has to win this weekend against ASU. Coming up next, we're going to make our picks on that game, some other rivalry week games, and then another big game on Thanksgiving Day. It's a big basketball game, I would say, against Michigan State here on Wildcat Country. Shane, I'll tell you, this is the segment I have been waiting for all year. It is time to make picks for the biggest game of Arizona's season, I would think, against ASU. But not only that, it's time for a big basketball game against a team that was preseason top 5, Michigan State, in Palm Springs on Thursday. Shane, I'm going to start with you. We don't have a line for that game, but as we did with the Duke game, give us your pick and by how many points will they win?
I'm getting a lot of crap from people already on social media. Like, well, Shane always picks against us. Well, I'm going to pick Arizona to win this game. Although I think that Michigan State does have, I don't say an advantage, but they do have 4 senior starters and a junior. So they have plenty of experience. If you want to go by this logic of, well, Arizona beat Duke and Duke beat Michigan State, fine. Doesn't usually work out that way. I think Arizona's a little bit better of a team. I think they'll last Michigan State. I'll take them to win by, say, 5 points.
Okay. Barrett, how about you? What do you think?
I'll up that by about 3 points, just because I think that we've already gone into a hostile environment early in the season, which is challenging. Obviously, with Duke, now we're going against another blue blood on the road, if you will. But I think that there's an 8-point win there.
Okay, I'm actually going to say Arizona by double digits. I'm going to say Arizona by 10. I have not been impressed at all with what I've seen from Michigan State. They have a really pure scorer in Tyson Walker, who's a guard. He's averaging 23 points a game. He's a good player, but I just have not been impressed. Arizona looks as dominant as they were in 2013, 2014, 2015, and maybe even in 2021 when they were a number 1 seed in the tournament. I think the Wildcats impose their will and get to 2-0 in this crazy non-conference schedule that I doubted, as Shane and I talked about in the first segment. All right, time for the football picks. Shane and I were both 3-4 last week. Jeff Dean 1-6. Ouch. I am 2 games up on Shane, and the guest pickers not so good. But Barrett Baker 10-9-2 this year, so he is above 500 with his picks going into this 9-game slate. And we'll start with the biggest game of the weekend, and not necessarily for us, but in college football, the rivalry that I think is the best in all of sports, Ohio State at Michigan. Michigan is a 4-point favorite. Barrett, who do you like?
Ohio State, just a lot of controversy around Michigan right now. I think Ohio State's an awfully good team, and I would think that they're going to actually beat them by about 11 on this one.
Wow. Okay. Shane?
I'm going to go the opposite direction. I think Michigan is going to rise above the controversy. I think they got their home crowd in front of them. They've beaten Ohio State 2 years in a row. It was funny because I feel like we still don't know a lot about these teams. They haven't been challenged that much this year, but I think it's at home for Michigan. I think they have the better quarterback. I think they find a way to win and cover.
I actually agree with Barrett. I like Ohio State in this game, lower scoring game, but I don't trust Sharon Moore, who's calling plays for Michigan. He's not Jim Harbaugh, obviously, and Ryan Day needs this game badly after losing 2 in a row to the Wolverines. I like Ohio State to win by a field goal. Let's go to the Iron Bowl. I mean, it's one of the greatest rivalries in college football, but looks like a blowout this year. Alabama's a 14.5-point favorite on the road at Auburn. Shane, can the Tigers cover, or is this going to be blowout city?
Well, Auburn just lost to New Mexico State. Did they not?
By 3 touchdowns.
By 3 touchdowns. You could say, well, they're gonna come roaring back and be angry, but I don't think it's gonna matter. I think Alabama's clicking on all cylinders now. I think if they get in the college football playoff, they're going to be maybe even the team to beat. So even if Auburn keeps it close for 3 quarters, I think Alabama pulls away late and covers.
Barrett?
Agree. Nothing more to say on that one. They're just Alabama. That's what they are again. And Auburn is not Auburn.
Hugh Freeze actually did pretty well against Nick Saban when he was at Ole Miss, and Alabama might be looking ahead a little bit to Georgia. I think Auburn keeps us within a couple of touchdowns. I think they got caught looking ahead to Alabama, and I think Alabama might get caught looking ahead to Georgia. I don't think Auburn's going to win, but I think 14.5 is a lot of points. I think at home they can stay within a couple of touchdowns. So I'm going to roll with the Tigers there with the points. All right, here's an interesting one. Florida State is a 6.5-point favorite at Florida. Both teams lost their quarterback for the season. Can the Gators pull the upset, Barrett, or is Florida State destined for the college football playoff with a backup quarterback?
I feel like Napier's a little bit on the hot seat there, and so does his team go to bat for him? I don't know how else to say that. Is he the guy for the job there? Florida State has not been really pushed by anybody this year when it comes to their strength of schedule and quality of wins. So I'm gonna actually think that Florida might not win, but I think they'll cover the point spread on that one.
Shane.
Yeah, Florida should have beaten Missouri this past week. The Missouri converted a 4th and 17 to set up a game-winning field goal. And then of course you look at Florida State. Jordan Travis is out for the year, very unfortunate injury. But ideal scenario, guys. Florida wins.
Yep.
Billy Napier gets a lifetime contract, and we don't have to worry about Jed Fish Bolton for Florida. So, even without that, I think Florida finds a way to end on a high note. I think Florida State, it's just that injury is going to be too much to overcome. And I think the Gators not only cover but win.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, Shane. And I'm going to go, all of us have Florida with the points, but I think Florida wins the game outright here. I don't trust this backup quarterback on the road, first career start. Florida State has had a phenomenal year, but just a different team without Jordan Travis. Who knows what to expect from the new quarterback, Max Brown of Florida, spelled a little bit differently than our Pac-12 network guest, but I'm going to go with Florida to win the game outright against Florida State at home. All right, Notre Dame is a 24.5-point favorite at Stanford. Notre Dame blows out bad teams. Stanford doesn't win at home. They kept Arizona within a point. A scary game. Fortunately, Noah Fafita saved them. That was the beginning of his run. But I think Notre Dame wins this game by 4 touchdowns. How about you, Shane?
I agree with you. I don't like taking a road favorite by that much, but I just think Notre Dame's that much better. I think Stanford's done for the year. They got beaten pretty soundly in the big game against Cal. So I like Notre Dame to make a statement and cover.
Barrett?
I think Notre Dame wins, but I actually think that Stanford will keep it a little bit closer than the both of you. I will think that they keep it less than 24. So that's what I will say with that one.
So one pick I was way wrong about last week, I think all of us were, UCLA went in and just pounded USC. And I really thought USC would show up in Caleb Williams' likely final college game. They did not. but is this kind of a letdown spot for UCLA as a 10-point favorite at home against Cal? I actually like Cal to keep this one close, so I'm going to roll with Cal with the points. How about you, Barrett?
Tough one for me this year because with Cal not being on our schedule, they're almost irrelevant to me at this point in time. Wilcox traditionally has put forth a pretty solid product, and UCLA is just so up and down. They're like a yo-yo. So I don't know which one is going to show up. Given all that, let's see if Cal can finish on a high note and keep it within the point spread.
Shane,
I believe Cal would get to a bowl game with a win, wouldn't they? They're 5-6.
I think so.
I believe so. This
is a big game for them.
You wouldn't think, you don't think about it, but because they've been irrelevant most of the year, but they could get to a bowl game. So a lot on the line for them. UCLA maybe coming down a little bit from the USC, the win over USC. But I think I agree with you guys. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think UCLA, especially with Garbers back at quarterback, finds a way to grind out a win. I don't think they're going to cover though.
The other interesting thing about this matchup, what's the story with Chip Kelly? If he knows he's out, do the players just kind of think about the transfer portal and not really show up against Cal? They beat their rival. Great. This is a letdown spot. So, yeah, we're all going Cal here. I think Cal has a big shot to win this game outright. Just a funny feeling. All right, Colorado's at Utah, who's favored by 21.5. We don't know the status of Shedeur Sanders as we were recording this on Monday night, but I'm going to assume he is out, and I will take Utah to win this game by 4 touchdowns and cover the line. How about you, Shane?
Yeah, I think Utah's going to be a little PO'd. Although I will say that a lot of times after Arizona beats a team, that team looks like garbage the following week. We saw that with Colorado. We saw that with UCLA. I don't think it's going to necessarily apply to Utah. I think they're too well coached, and they still have a decent bowl game on the line. So, and Colorado has been fading big time lately. Washington State, which was I think the worst team in the Pac-12 going into last week, went in and routed Colorado. So I think Utah finds a way to cover at home.
Barrett.
Agree. They're just going in the wrong direction. I think Utah's defensive front is going to pose a lot of problems for Colorado's offensive line. And without Shedeur there, it's going to be a mismatch. So Utah by 27.
Will Washington get caught looking ahead to a likely matchup with Oregon? Maybe Arizona in the Pac-12 championship game? We'll make that pick next, but let's start with Washington State at Washington, and the Huskies are favored by 16. Shane, I'll start with you. What do you think?
If this were a Pullman, I might be tempted to say Washington State finds a way to pull the upset, but I don't think so. I think there's too much on the line for the Huskies. I think that they just survived a close game. I think they're going to look to make a statement. I think they're going to find a way to win and cover.
Barrett.
Yeah, Washington State's another tough one for me to figure out. I mean, they were so good early in the season and then obviously just went off the cliff there, rallied for a big win. But I think Washington knows what they're playing for. And I think if you have an opportunity to get an undefeated season, then they're going to put a pretty good effort for. I would think that they cover this one.
I actually kind of like Washington State. They showed me something last week. I don't think they're going to win the game. They got blown out at home last year by Washington, but Washington just hasn't looked that great. I think Washington State keeps us within a couple of touchdowns, so I'm gonna roll with them there. All right, big game on Friday night. Oregon State at Oregon, the Civil War, or the rivalry that used to be known as the Civil War before, I don't know, whatever changed, but nonetheless, Oregon's favored by 2 touchdowns, 14 points against the Beavers. Barrett, we'll start with you. What do you think?
I'm almost speechless because I don't know. I think Oregon is obviously playing at a very, very high level. But Oregon State is just tough to put away and run away from. I think Oregon State obviously can control the ball through the air and the running game. It's going to be close. I think Oregon pulls it out, but I actually think that Oregon State will keep it close enough and cover the point spread.
Okay. How about you, Shane?
I tend to agree, although Oregon's kind of like Arizona men's basketball. They could put up so many points in a hurry and just crush your soul. I think it's going to be a close game for most of the game. I think Oregon pulls away late. They're just playing too well. I think they're the best team in the conference right now in terms of how they're playing right now. So I think Oregon wins, but I'm going to give Oregon State enough credit to say they cover.
Boy, we're all going to agree on this one. I think Oregon State keeps it close for a while, Shane, just like you said. I think it will be a very interesting game, but I'm going with Oregon to win the game by 7 to 10 points, somewhere in that ballpark. Maybe we're wrong, but I think the Beavs really have something to prove. Who knows if and when this rivalry will survive in the long term consistently. So I'm rolling with Oregon State to keep it close, but Oregon wins and unfortunately dashes the hopes of Arizona in the Pac-12 championship game. And now on Saturday, the Wildcats are 11.5 point favorites at Arizona State. Barrett, Give us your spiel on this one. What are you thinking?
Listen, 12 years that we have not gone up there and come out with a victory, even when we've had a better team. I think right now we've got something special with this team, though. I don't think that ASU knows what they're up against, and I think that Coach Fish is going to have the guys ready. I would like to think that we're going to win comfortably, and I truly believe that we can do that. I'm going to say Wildcats by 23 points. I think we're just ready to blow them out.
Okay, by 20. Boy, that would be a satisfying game. You know, as I mentioned to Shane in the first segment, Barrett, watching that Utah game was just satisfying as an Arizona fan. You know, you just could enjoy it the whole time because it was 28-0 before you can blink, right? I really hope that Saturday's game is like that. Now, I have a few stats that I want to give before I make my pick. Wildcats are seeking consecutive wins over ASU for the first time since, Shane, do you know the answer?
08-09, right?
That is absolutely correct. Wildcats allowing 20.6 points a game this season would be the fewest since allowing 19.6 points a game in what year, Barrett? Little trivia question for you. What year would you guess that Arizona had a better defense than this one most recently?
2008?
2006, good guess. Actually very close. So Mike Stoops, we know it was not under Rich Rod. ASU seeking their first win over an AP-ranked Arizona team since before Barrett was in school, 1992, when they won 7-6. ASU is 0-4 against ranked teams this season, allowing 40 points a game. ASU is averaging 17.3 points a game this season, the worst among all Power 5 schools. Just wanted to get those stats in there before I make my pick. Listen, my co-host has written 2 books on this topic. He knows the rivalry better than most. I am 10-1 against the spread in picking Arizona games this year. Every week I'm like, well, is the streak going to continue? Arizona is really, really good against the spread this year. They're 8-3, one of the best teams in the country. I think they're number 3 behind UNLV and New Mexico State. Make that 9-3. Arizona 34, ASU 20. All right, Shane. Everybody's been waiting. They're calling you out. Negativity on Twitter. What do you have for us?
All right. Try to be quick. Keys to the game. Set the tone early. And Barrett touched on this. And Kenny Dillingham said this during his press conference on Monday. His team has trouble bouncing back when it gets punched in the face early. So avoiding early mistakes, a turnover, a special teams gaffe that allows ASU to take an early lead, build confidence, get the fans into it, could turn this into a long, grinded out kind of game that we don't want. And one that ASU is capable of winning because crazy crap happens in this rivalry. So going ahead early, punching them in the mouth early like they did against Utah, or at the very least, avoiding a mistake that allows ASU to jump ahead early is a big deal. On defense, play aggressive, but play to the whistle. Arizona's defense has been outstanding. They've been aggressive, nasty, everything you want to see. They've lived a bit dangerously in terms of avoiding late hits, roughing the passer penalties, like I mentioned earlier. So I'm not saying those would have been good calls, but you don't want to give the officials any reason to throw a flag. So I know that after these guys get done listening to Chuck Cecil and Dwayne Aquino, they're going to be ready to run through an army. They still have to play with poise and intelligence. So avoid silly penalties that allows ASU to continue drives. And then keep things simple on offense. Noah Fafita is at his best when he simply takes what the defense gives him, finds the open man. He usually has time to do that behind this offensive line. Don't take unnecessary shots down the field. That goes for Jetfish too. That's more Jed Delora's game. That's not Noah Fafita's game. Use that pre-snap movement, use your blockers, turn 5 to 10 yard passes into 20 to 30 yard gains, which is what they've been doing during this entire winning streak. And don't force anything. If a play isn't there, throw the ball away, take a sack if you have to, and trust your defense to get you the ball back. I think football is still a simple game. You win the battle at the line of scrimmage, you win the turnover battle, you're going to win 99.9% of the time. Neither team has been great at getting takeaways, so that might be considered a wash, but Arizona has a very distinct advantage up front on both sides of the ball. Use that advantage, avoid dumb mistakes, and you win. I don't think this is going to be the blowout that a lot of Arizona fans hope for or even expect, but I think Arizona uses its superior talent and its depth. That's another big thing. A lot of teams get winded playing Arizona, using their talent and their depth to wear ASU down over 4 quarters. So I'm not going to take them with the points, but I'm going to take Arizona 27-17.
Close. All right. So that's fair. I don't think anybody can give you crap for that one, Shane.
By the way, the line started like at 8 or 9 points, and now it's 11 and a half, 12. So it's going in that direction.
Yeah, and watch the line movement too. I mean, you saw the other day with Arizona, Utah, it started as a pick'em, or Utah started out favored, then it was a pick'em, and by game time, Arizona was a 2.5 point favorite. Yeah. Smart money usually knows what's going to happen, and it was correct. Let us hope the line goes up. I think anything short of 2 touchdowns, yeah, I'd probably play that. I really think, as Barrett said, this is our time to kind of release those years of frustrations and really put it on them. Let us hope, guys. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. Barrett, thank you so much for joining us as always. The best in the business. We always appreciate it. For Shane Dale, Barrett Baker, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. As always, bear down.